Nano Machine. Bai, Anhongweolja. Chapter 356. The Blood of Monsters. Part 1. The Imperial Palace and the Wuling signed a non-aggression treaty. It was a truce, wherein one party wouldn't interfere with the workings of the other. However, neither of them was the kind to stand still when an armed group infiltrated their base. At the Imperial Palace, Wuling was always treated as a threat and was carefully kept in place. The demonic cult was considered to be the deadliest by the Imperial Palace ever since the war. The Guardians were created as the hidden power to protect the Imperial Palace from internal threats since the time of King Taejo. A place where one can savor their power to its utmost might. Of the three major powers, only the demonic cult was the odd one. The other two groups were a huge cluster of numerous clans, so the direction, working, and power could shift at any moment, but the demonic cult was a one-man powered working system. Just like how the Imperial family inherits the throne. I thought they'd be from a wandering Wuling clan, but it turns out to be the Lord himself. It was a well-known fact that the demonic cult had thousands of believers. Everyone heard that thousands of men of the demonic cult would even jump into hellfire with one order from their lord. If such a strong person, the lord of the demonic cult, harbors ill feelings towards the Imperial family, the Demyong Empire wouldn't be able to handle the situation when it gets out of hand. You're the lord of the demonic cult? Yanwal couldn't hide her trembling voice when she asked Chun Yowon. Chun Yowon didn't bother giving her a genuine answer. Rather, he spoke words that made Yanwal doubt her ears. I can't waste time here. Chun Yowon shook his head. He had never guessed that Hamming wasn't just famous in Wuling, but also in the Imperial Palace. He surmised that it was his red hair that gave away their identity. I am sorry. Hamming apologized to Chun Yowon. Honestly, he didn't intend to do this. Before leaving the demonic cult, Chun Yowon had asked Hamming to dye his hair black. However, it wasn't like he refused, he actually willingly colored his hair to disguise himself, but each time he used his inner energy, his hair turned back to its original color. I should have at least used a hood. Unless there was anything that needed his immediate attention, he was to stay hidden. Hamming knew that someone would definitely recognize him for his hair, yet, he only covered his face. To think that he got identified in a matter of seconds during his first rendezvous. Leader Yangwal couldn't hide her embarrassment anymore. He didn't deny it. Hamming didn't outright affirm it, but it was the presence of the lord of the demonic cult which answered her question. Who else would get escorted by the guardians of the demonic cult, if not their lord? For the lord of the demonic cult to invade the Imperial Palace. Under Yangwal's impression, the lord of the demonic cult was fearless. This was reference to his reputation within the Wuling. However, in reality, the lord was different from the hearsays. Wasn't he one of the lords who signed the non-aggression treaty and had a fair relationship with the emperor? How should I act now? According to the Imperial and Guardians rules, anyone who was discovered to have trespassed into the Imperial Palace had to be suppressed unconditionally, regardless of their status. They can be killed in an event of a rebellion. However, Yangwal found it hard to come to a decision. She couldn't even guess what would happen to her if she touched the lord of the demonic cult. Swoosh. The two inspection maids were waiting for her orders. If he is the lord of the demonic cult, cook. If the lord of the demonic cult invaded alone, she would have definitely tried to exterminate him. However, when the two savvy guardians appeared, Yangwal wasn't sure what to do. In the end, she came to conclude that it would be difficult to solve the problem at hand. Therefore, she came up with an exquisite trick. Right. Since it has come to this, I can take them into the Guardian's Palace and deal with them. The Guardian's Palace was filled with skilled people, including a Supreme Master Warrior. It seemed better to take them to the second leader, who had greater executive and deciding power than herself. Politely, Yangwal said to Chun Yowon, "If you, sir, are the lord of the demonic cult, how about we talk this out?" She cautiously spoke. Obviously, it was unreasonable to call them infiltrators in their faces. However, she couldn't help but feel uncomfortable as they didn't answer for a long time. She continued the conversation. "First of all, forgive me for my rudeness as I was unaware of your noble status." Leader Yangwal bowed her head and apologized. Considering that they were in the Imperial Palace, the place where the emperor resides, she treated the lord of the demonic cult accordingly. Yangwal slowly lifted her head and spoke. "I would still like to make a point. The lord entered the Imperial Palace without any prior notice despite the non-aggression treaty. So, if you can consider forsaking your mission, we will be more than happy to turn a blind eye." She tried her finest to act politely. However, she put it as if Chun Yowon was the one at fault. And her words continued. Well, how could we mistreat the noble as such? We can continue with talking in the Guardian Palace along with the others so that this matter can be handled as smoothly as possible. I know that you may feel wary of us, but I will earnestly serve you. Bringing her hands together, she once again bowed. The woman was clever. In doing so, she was hoping for a negotiation without coming off as rude. Chen Yuan wasn't an opponent she wanted to fight anymore. She would be able to prevent futile sacrifices, saving face for the other members of the Guardians. Hoo, you can't do anything anymore. Even if you are part of the Wuling, you can't act stubborn like any soldier as you are being considered as a lord now. In addition, if his identity is revealed, it will be difficult for him to make a fuss in the Imperial Palace. She was gloating as she thought of the plan she weaved. Yang Hua looked at Chen Yuan and waited for his answer. Smirk. Chen Yuan showed a light smile. Yang Hua, who took it as a positive reaction, thought that her trick worked. I did it. Now all she had to do was take the Lord and his men to the Guardian Palace, report it to the First Leader or even the Emperor, and wait for their orders. In fact, she was hoping for the non-aggression treaty between the Imperial Palace and the Wuling to fall apart because of this situation. Hopefully, His Highness, who hears the report from the First Leader, gets angry and orders for the destruction of the entire Wuling. Ho. Just the thought of it was pleasing. She was the kind who thought that the men of Wuling could never stand on an equal footing with the imperial family. If what she hoped for happened, everyone would be under the emperor. You have made the right choice. Now follow him. Puck. Before she could even finish her words, the sound of something slashing rang in her ears. The sound subsided and a red line appeared on the bodies of the 5 court ladies who stood between Chen Yuan and Yang Hua. What? The moment she came back to reality, she realized that the court ladies' throats were cut. Thud. 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 Blood gushed out from their bodies, soaking their clothes. Due to the scales on them, the women were unable to move their hands promptly. Yang Hua was shocked at what happened. All she could see was a bright blue hand blade on Chen Yuan. Air sword? It was obvious that this was incomparable to any other air sword. This. What are you doing? She never imagined that he would kill all the court ladies. Seeing Yang Hua stutter, Chen Yuan opened his mouth to let her know his intentions. This was fun while it lasted. You wrapped your intention in good words, but in the end, you'll backstab me? When did I even say that? Did I even act as such? I am going to assist you while we speak to the higher leaders. Stop with the bullshit. Strong energy began to emanate from his body. It was an energy momentum that would occasionally come from the emperor. Yang Hua went silent without realizing it. You old woman, you roll your tongue like a fox. I clearly warned you. I guess it was good enough seeing how you forsake your people. Honestly, this situation held no benefits to the demonic cult. They hid in the Imperial Palace to get rid of all the spies. If only the Guardians had handed over one spy, Elder Come, as Chen Yuan asked, he would have let the Guardians take credit, while he gets the information. Apparently, she was not satisfied with that. Yang Hua used tricks that were obvious to everyone's eyes. Aren't you scared of the after-effects of such behavior? If His Highness is told of such unruliness, the non-aggression treaty will be broken. When her plan didn't work, Yang Hua decided to use the Emperor's name for her benefit. With his lips curled up, Chen Yuan spoke. Who would let the Emperor know if all of you ended up dying here? Why you? Yang Hua's eyes shook, unable to focus. She tried to turn herself into a prominent figure but ended up walking to the edge of a cliff. It was my misjudgment. There were 2 kinds of opponents, one who could be dealt with words, and the other, wherein words should never be used. Foolishly, she ended up being the latter. Great Guardian and Left Guardian. Kill them all, don't even spare a single person. Yes. At Chen Yuan's command, both of them accepted the order. As if they were waiting for the command to fall, they leaped forward, making Yang Hua and the other court ladies act like mere mortals who needed saving. Stop. Don't come any further. Unlike the leader, the expressions of the court ladies went blunt. As soon as the order fell, Great Guardian Mara Kim and Left Guardian Hamming moved to implement it. Their speed and efficiency couldn't even compare to the other warriors as they went to kill them all. They were notorious ranked guardians of the demonic cult. Fat. The court ladies tried to attack Hamming with flame chi from all directions, but none could touch a strand of his hair. That flame doesn't work on me. Puck. They were no match for his skills. Instead, they were hit by the red sword of Hamming. They were the court ladies who were unable to feel pain, so even if they got cut or pierced, they kept on attacking until they could move no more. Puck. Clang. Thud. The sword cut through the ladies and they fell to the floor unable to get up. They turned immobile because of the energy that Hamming released while using the fire sword. There was no man who could live with the after effects of Hamming's sword. Slash. Chop. Pierce. With the nickname Wind God, Marakim moved swiftly, cutting down the throats of the court ladies at the speed of the wind. He moved with such agility that even the court ladies who showed beast-resilient moves weren't able to assess what was going on. Where is? Puck. Thud. Even if they were unable to feel pain, they couldn't help but feel scared towards an invisible opponent. I can't see him. The faces of the remaining people in the courtyard turned pale. Nearly half of the court ladies died. Even the 2 court ladies who were skilled enough to deal with the 4-Blade God's 6 martial clan spies seemed like nothing but children. Get yourself in the game. Yangwal couldn't help but fall into confusion as the tables got turned. Biting down on her lips, her eyes wandered. I will take care of the leader. Lord of the demonic cult? Don't be scared. No matter what you plan, I can stop it. There was no way that he would let her go, at least not after she knew his real identity. She knew that he was the lord of the demonic cult, and also fought with him for a brief moment. From her knowledge, he seemed to be less skilled than the 2 guardians. When we fought before, we were on the same level. If the others joined, I can subdue him. If the lord of the demonic cult was captured, his 2 guardians would cease to create a gap between us by collaborating with others. Pity. The 2 court maids hesitated for a moment before they ran to Chen Youan. Swoosh. One of the maid's shoulders was hit. Her joint had trouble moving because of the clash she had with Hamming previously. Despite that, they still aimed for Chen Youan's head while unfolding their sword. Fat. Aim at the moment they stopped their attacks. In a breath, Yangwal moved from her position to the back of Chen Youan as the 2 maids dealt with him in front. Her movements were quick, she couldn't be compared to the court ladies or the spies. Slash. 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 As the sword aimed for the head, it turned into a whip. However, even as she wielded her blazing sword whip right in front of Chen Youan, he didn't look scared. What is he up to? When her confidence turned into confusion, Chen Youan's hands moved like lightning and grasped the wrist of the maid who was waving the sword. Grab. It makes no sense to do this in the middle of wielding. It wasn't like her sword had been destroyed, but she was blocked head-on. Chen Youan held onto her flaming hand as if it didn't invoke pain. She was shocked. Crackle. Ugh, it's cold. A strong chill spread into her bones. It was shocking enough that her hand got caught, but when she tried to pull it out from Chen Youan's grasp, something more flustering happened. Crack. Wait. What did you do? Chen Youan strengthened his hands, lifted her body as if she was a stuffed toy, and threw her aside as the maids readied to strike him. Crash. Quack. Puck. Bang. Ugh. As they were thrown onto the floor, its impact on the wounded court maids was undetectable. The force he used to throw the maid made the stone floor crack that was beneath the point of impact. They all felt helpless against Chen Youan. Weeing. It was then that Yangwal, who was waiting for a gap, struck him. She let her burning red arms covered with scales out of her sleeves. Take this. Fat. Her flame chi emanated a force that wanted to burn down everything that surrounded her. It was the moment that she had been waiting for. However, it didn't go as planned. Top. She thought that when she attacked him from behind, Chen Youan would turn and block her. But Chen Youan moved away. Shit. Thanks to that, her flame chi couldn't reach Chen Youan. However, Chen Youan, who felt the rising energy behind him, jumped and moved in the opposite direction in the yard. It can't be. Step. 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 Chen Youan's hand held a sword imbued with black chi as he narrowed the distance between the both of them. With the black sword blazing, Chen Youan struck her side. He was aiming for her hands that held the flames. I need to avoid it. Normally, she would trust that the scales on her body could protect her. But the energy from the black chi sword instilled fear in her. I need to avoid it at all costs. Shocked, she tried to force herself to stop. Though exerting more energy than she had could cause her internal damage, she felt that internal injury was a lot better than getting her arms cut off. Flinch. Seeing the blood gush from her sides, she pulled her arms away. I did warn you in the beginning. Yangwal's eyes looked at Chen Youan, who spoke frigidly. Cold metal passed through her wrists before she could even regain her composure. Slash. Thuck. Yangwal's eyes widened as she realized what happened. She screamed so loud that veins began to pop on her neck and face. Chapter 357. The Blood of Monsters. Part 2. Just like the other court ladies, Yangwal couldn't feel any pain. But how many people could be composed seeing their hands cut off and fall onto the floor right in front of them? She was expecting for the black sword to stop, but her hands were cut in a single strike. Ugh. Even the scales on my hand weren't able to withstand the power. Yangwal's energy was incomparable to the other court ladies, but even that wasn't enough to withstand the sword of Chen Youan. Twitch! Twitch! Her veins wriggled like earthworms in her severed arm. Her ability to regenerate had been initiated yet, it didn't stop the blood from gushing out. It looked as if she didn't possess any regenerative ability at all. The shock of getting her hand cut in front of her lasted for a moment, and when Yangwal looked up, slash! The sharp tip of Chen Youan's sword pressed on her wrinkled old neck. It was clear to her that Chen Youan wanted her dead. Ugh! This monster! From the moment she clashed with him, she thought that his skill could be deciphered by her, but it turned out to be an illusion. She was oblivious of Chen Youan's capability. Am I going to die like this? The sensation of fear that she felt when the tip of the black sword touched her couldn't be shaken off. As soon as it became clear to Yangwal that Chen Youan was intent on silencing her at any cost, her politeness disappeared. She began to change tactics. Do you need help in smoothly leaving the Imperial Palace? Her speaking tone and style became uncourteous. An attitude that's nearly identical from the first time she talked with him. Human nature would never change. Do you think I will have trouble getting out? You're belittling the Imperial Palace. You made such a racket and you thought no one would notice you. His fight together with the battle between the Guardian's court ladies and the East Spear's warrior made such a racket that even the nearby East House, the base of the East Spear, and the Golden Guards who served as night guards, would surely notice. As soon as they arrive, you'll be considered as an enemy of the Imperial Palace. Murderer. Don't go around dreaming bullshit about escaping. She acknowledged that Chen Youan was a strong opponent, but she thought that he couldn't handle the forces of the Imperial Palace in its entirety. If the Imperial Palace turns noisier with the arrival of others, even the high-ranking officials of the Guardians will come. And they are a lot stronger than me. You will never be able to walk past them. The demonic cult will cease to exist. Yangwal was blinded by the power she thought the Imperial Palace had. However, Chen Youan's reaction was weird. He didn't show unease at the information nor had any thoughts, it was as if he was indifferent to it. What is he up to? Looking at his indifferent behavior, she wondered. But the tip of the sword that was on her neck soon touched her right cheek. Top? What are? Slash. Ugh. Before she could even ask, Chen Youan's sword pierced her cheek from one side to the other, and pulled it out. Yangwal screamed as her mouth got ripped and hanged in shock. What the hell did you do? Her words filled with shock and fear. Chen Youan answered while pitying her. I tried to cut your tongue, but it looks like it didn't work. What? Yangwal felt a chill run down her spine at his words. The moment the sword was pushed into her mouth, she made sure to save her tongue by shoving it down. Otherwise it would have been cut off. Shhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh. Hard to imagine that humans have it. Looking at her, the minor wounds easily healed while her limbs, that were completely cut off, were hopeless. Why aren't they here yet? Although the wounds healed, Yangwal began to turn impatient at the thought of facing more humiliation from Chen Youan. People around the guest house must have heard the commotion considering how usually quiet the nights were. Even the Imperial Army should have arrived. Disdaining the anxious Yangwal, Chen Youan clicked his tongue. You are so stupid, what? Don't tell me you thought I wasn't thinking things through? What do you mean? Chen Youan's words made Yangwal look around puzzledly. This entire area has been covered with sound blockage. So sound blockage? What nonsense are you spouting? How can that be used in such a vast area? She shouted in shock. Yanwal always thought of herself as someone who's equal to the commander due to the nature of her skills and abilities. She was adept at profound sound blockage in a certain area, however, only in small rooms could she maintain the sound blockage. She becomes exhausted maintaining exorbitant internal energy used for it. Impossible. Does he possess infinite internal energy to make me seem so useless? Even if her internal energy increased by tenfold, it would still be improbable for her to block the sound of the main vast courtyard of the guest house. You seem to be the one of the stereotypical people who say, since I can't do it no one can. It makes no sense. She found reality unacceptable. She wanted to reject what her eyes showed her. Still, she waited to hear some kind of the sound, but it was in vain. Which meant that Chen Youan's words were indeed true. Sound had been completely cut off. Your body seems to regenerate, but will it regenerate if I cut down your throat? Shhhh. He raised his black sword, checking if he could cut her throat or not. Yangwal paled as she saw that. No. No. If this happens, even someone as strong as me will meet a dog's death. A dog's death meant dying with the truth being distorted. She couldn't let that happen to her. So in order to escape that, Yangwal yelled desperately. If you kill me, your men will die too. Don't talk bullshit. Just before dying, she began to speak rubbish. Ignoring her words, Chen Youwen raised his sword after adjusting the angle for a clean strike. Holding her severed hands close to her chest, she begged earnestly. The Guardians have currently caught 3 spies who wore a mask and gold armor on them. You wouldn't say that you don't know them, right? Pang. Immediately Chen Youwen's sword, which was ready to strike her throat, stopped mid-air. She said that there were 3 people who wore gold armor. They were the people he knew. Did they get caught? They settled to meet with Zhu Taikon at his residence tonight. Chen Youwen didn't know that they got caught. Seeing Chen Youwen stop, hope blossomed in Yangwal's eyes. It worked. So, they're this man's subordinates. She just has this last straw to save herself, and it worked. Her sweating face that barely held any sanity, finally found some hope. You said that the Guardians caught them? Yes. Chen Youwen, who looked unconcerned until a moment ago, was frowning. It made Yangwal feel delighted. Finally, she found his weakness. I thought he was some cruel monster, but I guess not. It was hard to believe that Chen Youwen wasn't willing to abandon his subordinates so easily. There were always rumors about the Lord of Demonic Cult being cruel to others, but righteous to their members. Yangwal decided to use this rumor against him. If only he would follow me to the Guardian Hall telling him that I'd release them. She could somehow use the situation to save herself. Once she reaches the Guardian Hall, she can scream to let them know that he is an enemy, and they would attack him right away. If she took him to the Elder, the true hidden power of the Imperial Palace, even the Lord of Demonic Cult would be brought down on his knees, which was why she was carefully trying to bait Chen Youwen. So, if you can spare me, your men can be released. Puck. Huh? Yangwal's eyes were in shock. She couldn't differentiate reality and her imagination anymore. Even before she could put forth her deal, Chen Youwen swung his sword. Her throat felt dry and cold as the sword came closer and closer. What are you doing? You sly and verbose fox, just die. Shirring. Tuck. The moment his words fell, Chen Youwen's sword moved and her vision became hazy as she fell. It wasn't until her head fell to the ground that she realized that she had been decapitated. Was it a side effect of her regenerative power which was abnormal? Even though her neck got cut, she didn't die immediately. How did it come to this? It was only for a moment. Crack. Chen Youwen crushed Yangwal's head, which was currently on the ground. A miserable end for a person who tried to work hard the entire time. Shh. In front of Chen Youwen, who seemed vexed, Great Guardian Marakim and Left Guardian Hamming appeared from the roof. Putting their hands together, Li Hamming and Marakim greeted him. Your command has been carried off. They were the ones who killed all the court ladies. It didn't feel right to hit or kill women, but seeing how they acted, they took the task seriously. They made sure to not use the swordsmanship of the demonic cult as much as possible. That would probably make it hard for others to guess the wounds or the cause of death of the corpses. That's precisely why Chen Youwen didn't use the demon sword. Then, shall we take this man and withdraw? Li Hamming asked, pointing to the bald man who fainted on the ground. Chen Youwen sighed. I would like to do that, but the others have been captured. Are you talking about them? At the unexpected turn of events, the 2 guardians were shocked. It was shocking that the trained people spying and assassination got caught. Great Guardian Marakim asked carefully. What do you plan on doing, my lord? It was known that spies were to be killed, but in order to save his men who got trapped, Chen Youwen had no other choice but to break in. Moreover, Chen Youwen was unaware of the Guardian Hall's location, as it was known to be hidden from everyone. It was a place that even the members of the Blade God's 6 martial clan couldn't find. Lord, realistically, rescuing them shouldn't be an option for us. It is a pity, but how about we just give up on them? The Left Guardian, Li Hamming, suggested a rational option. Our members were already taught to be prepared in case they got caught by the enemy. If escaping is difficult, then they have to kill themselves. Grunt. Ugh, is there really no other choice but to abandon them? Hubong bit his lip at the thought of abandoning his members, however, even he knew that there was no concrete way to help them. That was when Chen Youwen shook his head and spoke. If I decide to abandon the people who I picked up with my own hands, I am unqualified as Lord. I can't stand and let them kill themselves just because they got caught. Chen Youwen looked at Yang Wal's smashed head as he said those words. When he decided to infiltrate the imperial palace, he was aware of the fact that there were people who used unique methods and tricks. Then what are we gonna do? Li Hamming, who opposed the rescue operation because of the risk, asked anxiously. But it wasn't Chen Youwen who answered. Some are still breathing. Suddenly, Mara Kim pointed to the inspection maids who were on the floor. All the other court ladies were dead, but these two were kept alive. He spoke. Great Guardian. Would they bow to us easily? Would they really give out the location of the Imperial Palace Guardian Hall just because they slaughtered a few court ladies? But Chen Youwen wanted to grab onto any thread he could. If he had time, he could take them outside, infuse them with drugs and make them confess, but Chen Youwen didn't have time. It was also impractical doing it in the courtyard. However, if they missed such a perfect timing, they would never find the location of Guardian Hall. Especially if news spread that court ladies and their group leader were killed. Mara Kim shook his head. Of course, enemies won't bow to us, huh? Mara Kim turned to Chen Youwen and spoke. Lord, how does this sound? How long has it been since they decided to walk on the same path as the lord of the demonic cult? Did I pass out? Having a strong and cursed body that couldn't sense pain felt amazing. As it was her first time meeting a strong opponent, she fainted from being overpowered. What happened? She finally got her thoughts sorted out and tried to get up, but her body betrayed her. Thud. Was this the drawback of her inability to feel pain? She was completely unaware of her condition until she tried to get up. Unfortunately, it took time for her to realize that her ankle got severed. My feet. Realizing that both her feet got amputated, the maid's face turned pallid. It was like living inside a nightmare. What happened after she passed out? On one side, she found numerous bodies of women on the ground as their blood's malodor invaded her nose. It was foul enough to make her eyes burn. When she looked nearby, she saw a familiar outfit on her body. The hands and neck were brutally severed, which meant that the bearer was dead. Le leader. While she fainted, all the court ladies including her leader got killed. They crossed paths with monsters. How long was I out? It was still dark, and no one wandered. It seemed like nobody found them. At that moment, a deep voice reached her ears. It seems that a court lady still lives. As she turned her head towards the voice, two men, who appeared to be cadets of the Golden Guards appeared. They appeared to be the night guards of the house. Goodness. One of the guards expressed his shock as he saw her cut off ankles. A white-masked man examined her condition. Aren't you a maid? Are you alright? As these people arrived, the shocked maid answered. I am fine. When did the Golden Guards come? She cried. Maybe the terrible battle only transpired briefly, and the others hadn't discovered it yet. We heard some clamor, and when he entered the East Spear Hall, we were confronted by this atrocious sight. Ugh. One of our guards had gone to report to our central office. People will arrive soon. It hadn't been long. Her eyes shook. If the words of the man were indeed correct, it hadn't been that long since that horrible battle. If so, she had to report it to the higher-ups of the Guardians to prevent the lord of the demonic cult from escaping outside the Imperial Palace. But the problem was her severed foot. I am sorry, but could the guard please help me? Of course. We will take you to the Imperial Palace's infirmary. No, it's crucial than that. Bigwigs have infiltrated the palace, and they might escape. I need to let someone know. At her hasted words, one of the guards tried to soothe her. Is that true? That is huge. But don't worry, the guards will come soon. No. Not just them. Sorry. Could you please lift me up? I will guide you. Treating you is important. Why guide us somewhere? Please just trust me. We are running out of time. Please. Fine. Seeing the stubborn maid, one of the guards put her on his back and carried her. Laying on him, she pointed to the northwest direction of the Imperial Palace, and asked him to hurry. That was when the white-masked guard who was following them from behind smiled wantonly. Chapter 358. The Blood of Monsters. Part 3. Sir Guard, could you run faster? It won't be pleasant with the wounds on your body, will you be okay? Please don't fret over these small wounds, and hurry up. Fine, hold on tight. Swish. The guard picked up speed at the words of the anxious maid. The speed at which he was currently moving was incomparable to the previous run. He's fast. The maid's eyes reflected astonishment. She knew that the guards were being taught martial arts, but his energy seemed to be far above Grand Master level. She wondered how they could be trained so efficiently, but decided to ask on another occasion as she had more important things on hand right now. That way, the moment the maid gave the directions, the guard would change his direction and continue. The palace grounds were so huge that even with him picking up speed by using his internal energy, he couldn't reach the destination right away. Shortly after, he reached the northwest side of the palace. A huge tomb-like structure stood in front of the duo. This tomb, which seemed considerably larger than the emperor's residence, was the royal shrine of the former emperor. A tablet was entrenched in front of the ornate shrine. Why is it the emperor's tomb? The guard couldn't help but look puzzled as he carried the maid. It was a foreseeable reaction. He couldn't comprehend why the maid had asked him to bring her to the royal shrine of the former emperor instead of the higher-ups. And of course, the tomb was a decoy, it doesn't possess the former emperor's body. The tomb was to commemorate the first emperor who founded the Demyong Empire. Why are we here? The guard questioned the maid in a flustered manner, when suddenly, the maid struck him. Hey! He was unscathed because he had the armor on. The armor turned red because of her fire chi attack. But, his safety didn't last for long. The maid used both her hands to grab his neck. Cough. What are you doing? I, a maid of a guardian, receives instructions and orders directly from His Majesty. From this moment on, you shall forget everything you witnessed now. If not, I will behead you according to the royal laws. At the threatening voice and her choice of words, the guard couldn't talk back. He bowed to her orders as he wanted to keep his life. The guard behind too understood. After listening to the answer of the guard behind them, the maid pointed to the shrine. Please head inside. Yo, you mean the shrine? Yes. As soon as she answered, the guards hesitantly went into the shrine. Everything inside was dark as if the lights of the shrine were turned off. During the day, the scent of the incense would enter the noses of those who would enter. The inside of the shrine lit up when the guard in the back found a lamp hanging on the wall of the shrine and lit it. Oh! The guard who was carrying the maid couldn't hold back the exclamation as he saw the interior. The shrine was entirely decorated in gold and was in no way comparable to the ordinary shrines. A portrait of the first emperor hung on the inner wall of the shrine, and on the altar ahead of them was a tablet with an incense holder with a burnt-down incense in it. You just witnessed the first emperor, why are you not bowing to him? That was. When both the guards looked at the portrait and did not bow, the maid asked them suddenly. When the guard who was carrying the maid became flustered, the guard from behind answered her question right away. Inspection maid, we would always bow to the first emperor, but weren't you the one who said that an invasion within the palace may happen and we had to hurry to inform? The words of the guard seemed to convince the maid, and she immediately pointed to the right side of the altar and asked them to move. Once they walked to the right of the altar, there was a huge red cloth embroidered with golden dragons on it in front of them. When she reached out and pulled the cloth above, a road leading to the back of the altar appeared. What? There was such a path hidden behind the shrine. Who would have thought that such a secret is hidden in the royal shrine of the first emperor? Upon entering the road, they were now able to enter behind the walls of the altar. At the back of the portrait wall, there was space wide enough for two people to stand. It seemed like a hidden passage would open in front of them, but their path was blocked by a blue wall. Sapphire stone wall? A wall, made of solid sapphire, suddenly appeared in front of them. As the guard lifted the lamp to light the wall, an illustration of an animal came to life. However, it wasn't a real animal. The body was shaped like a deer, the tail of a cow and the hooves of a horse. The most peculiar feature of that so-called animal was its head, which looked like a dragon with horns attached to it, and an elongated neck joined its head and its body. A qilin? The wall had a strange painting of a qilin, Chinese mythical creature. It is also referred to as the flame qilin, as it could breathe fire from its body. It is also said that a qilin is the incarnation of fire. It is a sacred being in the ancient legends and also mentioned in the Book of Songs and spring and autumn period. Like a phoenix, when the qilin appeared, it was said to be an auspicious sign of an appearance of a great king or a great emperor. To draw this right behind the portrait of the first emperor. What was the most astonishing was that the person who engraved the qilin's picture seemed to be a devoted person. Seeing how cleanly he drew on the sapphire wall. With his fingers. While they were wondering, the maid spoke. This is no time to be in shock, please go closer to the wall where the picture is drawn. The guard went closer to the painting and asked, like this? As the guard stopped, the maid reached out to the painting and pressed both eyes of the qilin at the same time. The eyes that were drawn on the wall went inside. Eyes? Grrrrng. The moment the eyes went inside the wall, a sound of something moving inside the wall echoed. The sapphire wall split in half like a castle gate opening, and a path lay in front of them. This was the entrance to the secret Imperial Palace's Guardian Hall. "Please follow the path," the maid spoke as soon the sound faded into oblivion. Considering that the altar was attached to the innermost wall of the shrine, the Guardian Hall could only be located inside the royal shrine. Swoosh! What was inside the sapphire wall was unknown, but as the wall opened, an alien energy welcomed them. "I need to hurry." As they entered the inner passage of the Guardian Hall, the maid's eyes began to turn heavy. The white-masked guard only followed them. "I never would have imagined that such a place would be behind the shrine. This should not be the concern of the members of the guards or the Golden Council. Please, just follow my instructions." Responding quietly, she bit her lip. Honestly, she felt bad for them. Anyone who doesn't receive the permission from the Emperor or the Guardian's Master and enters the Guardian Hall would be beheaded. Perhaps, the moment they reached the end of the path, the guards would be killed. Which was why she didn't want to talk to them. As if he had no intentions of complying with her words, the guard in the back spoke again. "If this is a hidden path, then there could be traps placed here. Do you have an idea where they are? What are you talking about?" She tried to turn back and say something to the guard, but they ended up arriving at the end of the passage. At the end of the passage was a wide opening. However, the moment she arrived at the hall, she went speechless. The smell of blood invaded her nose once again. This hall in the middle was a place where 3 roads intersected. Normally, guards of the Guardians would be standing on all 3 roads with spears in their hands. But right now, the guards were on the ground, lifeless. How is that possible? The maid was beyond shocked as she couldn't guess what happened, until the voice of the guards entered her ears. "This is unexpected. I mean, were there people who visited this place before us?" The maid was shocked. The voice of the guards changed from before. However, she recognized the voice. It belonged to the Lord of Demonic Cult, whose voice she heard before fainting. No. It can't be. She wanted to deny everything she was experiencing right now, but no matter how much she thought, it was that man's voice. As she heard the voice again, she felt convinced. Nothing can be done. Where is the Guardian's prison cell? I was deceived. The man who beat her up. She thought that they had slaughtered all the women and fled away, but that wasn't clearly true. They deceived themselves as the guards. How did this happen? Oh, it wasn't enough that they killed their leader and the other court ladies, because now, they even tricked her and invaded the Guardian Hall. At that moment, she decided to take down the man who was carrying her. Sure, she would suffer, but she won't do nothing in this situation. Ugh. The moment she reached out and grabbed the neck of the guard. Thud. Quack. The maid's neck suddenly broke. The maid, who was trying to attack, fell back onto the back of the guard. She saw Chun Yoan's face looking at her in her last moments before she drifted into an eternal slumber. Hu Bong. You can put her down. Ugh. Did you kill her? Thump. The guard carrying her dead body dropped her to the floor right away. Hu Bong was the man who carried her. Thanks to the plan that Great Guardian Mara Kim came up with, they easily infiltrated the Guardian Hall. However, new problems had risen. There were others who invaded the Imperial Palace Guardian Hall. What happened here? Looking around, Hu Bong asked after seeing the dead guards. Seeing that the blood hadn't clotted yet, he came to the conclusion that it hadn't been long since they were killed. However, there was a problem. This method of killing is similar to our sword demon. And to leave such obvious tracks. All the dead bodies had traces of the demonic cult's energy on them. There was no way that Chun Yoan or any other men belonging to the demonic cult would leave such obvious traits on the guards. There seemed no resistance from the guards when they were killed, and the guards emitted no demonic energy, but it seemed like someone made it look like the guards were taken down by the demonic cult members. Realizing what was happening, Chun Yoan opened his mouth. Hu Bong, trying to save our men might end up turning into a huge problem. Meanwhile, in the large hall of the Guardian Hall, around 50 men wearing the uniforms of the regular soldiers, holding onto their spear, looked at the hall in trance with a tense look. In the middle of them, a middle-aged man wearing the official uniform of the commander of the Imperial Palace, touched the sword in his hand with a serious expression. Tata-tatak. At that time, a soldier from the common entrance of the hall ran in and spoke in a hurry. He hurriedly reported to the commander and knelt on one knee. We are in trouble, master. The wall opened, I think they will be here soon. The commander's identity was the master of the Imperial Palace's guardian. Unlike the other commanders and generals in the palace, the warriors of the Guardian only concerned them with the matters of the Imperial Palace. How did all this even happen? The Master groaned, not being pleased with what was happening. Since the founding of the Guardians, not once had any enemy infiltrated their hall. As if that wasn't enough, the invaders weren't just passing through, but they crossed all the borders and headed straight for the central hall. What is their purpose for doing it? The purpose for coming to the center hall was clear. It was the treasure of the palace. The treasure from generation to generation of the imperial family was under the protection of the Guardians under the command of the Master. Such treasure should never fall into the hands of enemies. Was it planned? It was suspicious that the enemy began their attack where the Guardian members were missing. Had the court ladies and their leader, who went out to tackle spies, been present, tackling the enemies would have been more efficient. We are going to be hit. Prepare yourselves. The Master shouted at the 50 men. No matter what happens, don't let the enemies enter the 7th passage. Put your life at stake. Use any means possible. Startle. Master, who was trying to increase morale, went silent. From the common aisle, the sound of someone approaching them could be heard. They arrived. Before long, they made their appearance at the entrance of the hall. The clothes of the 3 men who invaded their grounds were stained with blood, except for the woman who had a sword in front of them. Just how many people did they have to kill for their clothes to turn red? The woman with the sword was muttering something under her breath. There is no end to killing these bugs who are hiding behind a grave. She was muttering such things in front of the hidden power of the Imperial Palace. Rather than being frightened, she was displaying an annoyed attitude. As if trying to showcase her power. The bearded man next to her clicked his tongue. Measly flies. We need to leave marks, so leave this place to us and go ahead with the plan. The 2 men stepped out, and the women, whose clothes were drenched in blood, nodded at the bearded man's words. She then tried to casually cross the hall from the middle of the warriors. As a result, she incurred the wrath of the Guardians. How dare you speak such words in the presence of the Guardians? Fat. Although the people were wearing soldiers' clothes, most of them were superior master-level warriors. 3 soldiers began to release energy and ran for the woman who was covered in blood and unfolded their sword. Before they could even prepare for the attack, something amazing happened. Chuck. When did she even move? The woman brought out the sword which was at her waist. Cha, 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 cha. That moment they reached her, the bodies of the 3 split open like boiled eggs, and then crumbled to the floor. Thud. 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 Without even being able to scream, they ended up suffering miserable death. At the cruel sight which unfolded in front of their eyes, the warriors of Guardian were at a loss of words. It makes no sense. Even the Master, who was supposed to lead the Guardians, was shocked. He couldn't get his mind to adjust to what just happened. You worthless trash. The woman took a step again, heading for the Master who had to be taken down.